In December 2013, Target lost 40 million credit card numbers in about 3 weeks. The attackers got in through an air conditioning company. And almost every step of how it happened is public record. By the end of this video, you'll know how to read a real cyber attack the way a professional analyst does, using 2 frameworks every security team relies on. And you'll walk away with your first portfolio piece, published and live, before you close your laptop. This lab comes from week 1 of a cybersecurity course, so no prior experience is assumed. By the end of it, you'll be able to do 4 things: explain the cyber kill chain and its 7 stages, explain how MITRE ATT&CK organizes attacker behavior, map a real breach to both frameworks using real sources, and publish that work to a live GitHub page you can put on your resume today. Let's start with the 2 frameworks. In 2011, the defense contractor Lockheed Martin borrowed an idea from the military and applied it to cybersecurity, the kill chain. The theory is simple. Every successful cyber attack has to pass through the same 7 stages in order to succeed. Stage 1 is reconnaissance. The attacker researches the target, its employees, its vendors, its technology, anything public that reveals a way in. Stage 2 is weaponization, building or buying the actual malicious payload. Stage 3 is delivery, getting that payload to the target, usually through an email, a link, or a USB drive. Stage 4 is exploitation. The payload triggers, taking advantage of a vulnerability or a careless click. Stage 5 is installation. The attacker plants a lasting foothold, a backdoor that survives a reboot. Stage 6 is command and control. The malware phones home, giving the attacker live, remote access. And Stage 7 is actions on objectives. The attacker finally does what they came to do: steal data, destroy systems, or move on to another target. Here's the single most useful idea in this whole model. The attacker has to succeed at every one of these 7 stages. The defender only has to break one link at any point to stop the entire chain. The kill chain gives you the big picture. MITRE ATT&CK gives you the fine detail. ATT&CK stands for adversarial tactics, techniques, and common knowledge. Unlike the kill chain's fixed 7 steps, it's a massive, constantly updated database built from real, observed attacks. It works on 2 levels. Tactics are the attacker's goal, what they're trying to achieve, like gaining initial access or moving sideways through a network. There are 14 of these. Techniques are the specific method used to reach that goal, like phishing or using stolen login credentials. There are over 200 techniques, each with its own ID code, so that any analyst anywhere in the world knows exactly what you mean when you reference one. Here's a detail worth remembering. One technique can belong to more than one tactic. Stolen login credentials, for example, show up under initial access, under persistence, and under privilege escalation, because the same stolen password is useful to an attacker at several different points in an attack. You'll see this play out directly in the case study coming up. So why learn 2 frameworks instead of 1? Because they answer 2 different questions. The kill chain answers, which of 7 broad phases are we in? It's the framework you use to tell the story, to brief a manager or a room full of non-technical stakeholders on what happened, beginning to end. ATT&CK answers a much more specific question. Exactly which of hundreds of documented behaviors is this, precisely? It's the framework you use when the detail matters, for detection, for threat intelligence, for proving you know exactly what you're talking about. A strong analyst, and a strong portfolio piece, uses both. The kill chain for the narrative. ATT&CK for the proof. Now let's put both frameworks to work on a real breach. Target's December 2013 payment card breach, one of the most thoroughly investigated retail breaches ever recorded. Here's why it's such a good case study. The United States Senate actually published an official report titled, quote, "A Kill Chain Analysis of the 2013 Target Data Breach." Investigators had subpoena power. They got details that almost never become public. Everything in the next few minutes is built from that report, along with reporting from journalist Brian Krebs and the incident responders at Dell SecureWorks. One quick note before we dive in. This case study is a model answer, not something to copy. If you're building your own portfolio piece, either pick a different breach, or do your own independent research on this one. Redoing the research yourself is where the real learning happens. The attack didn't start with Target at all. It started with a small air conditioning and refrigeration company in Pennsylvania called Fazio Mechanical Services, a vendor with remote access into Target systems for billing and project management. Stage 1, Reconnaissance. The attackers researched Target's vendor network online and identified Fazio as a way in. Stage 2, Weaponization. They packaged a credential-stealing Trojan, reportedly called Citadel, and separately picked up a piece of point-of-sale malware on a criminal forum for under $2,500. Stage 3, Delivery. A phishing email landed in Fazio employee inboxes at least 2 months before anyone at Target noticed anything wrong. Stage 4, Exploitation. Someone at Fazio opened it. The malware ran and quietly harvested saved logins, including Fazio's credentials for Target's vendor portal. Stage 5, Installation, is where things escalate fast. On November 12, using that stolen vendor login, the attackers stepped from the vendor portal into Target's internal network for the very first time. Over the next few weeks they pivoted deeper, tested their malware on a handful of checkout terminals, and by November 30 had pushed a customized version across Target's entire point-of-sale system. A second tool, disguised to look like legitimate internal software, was planted to stage the stolen data. Target's own security software actually flagged this activity, and nobody acted on the alert. Stage 6, Command and Control. For roughly 3 weeks, the attackers kept live, remote access into Target's payment systems. Stage 7, Actions on Objectives. The malware read unencrypted credit card numbers directly out of computer memory as customers swiped their cards at checkout. The stolen data was quietly staged, then sent out over 2 weeks, timed to normal business hours so it would blend into everyday traffic. Around 11 gigabytes of data left Target's network before the intrusion was finally shut down. The Department of Justice tipped Target off on December 12. Target pulled the malware 3 days later. Brian Krebs broke the story publicly on December 18. And on December 19, Target confirmed 40 million stolen card numbers, a number that grew, 3 weeks later, to include 70 million more customer records. Here's what actually matters more than any single date in that timeline: how an analyst arrives at these conclusions. First, sometimes the framework practically writes itself. Look up ATT&CK's technique for trusted relationships, and MITRE's own official description literally names heating and air conditioning contractors as an example. That's not a coincidence. Target is one of the most cited real-world examples behind that exact entry. Second, match the behavior, not the buzzword. There's no ATT&CK technique specifically for point-of-sale malware. Instead, it maps to the general technique for reading data out of a running program's memory, because that's what's actually happening, regardless of what the malware is called. Third, an honest gap beats a confident guess. Nobody ever publicly nailed down exactly how the attacker's remote access worked. A good analyst says so, plainly, instead of inventing a plausible-sounding answer. And fourth, not every stage of an attack is equally complicated. The installation stage alone maps to 5 separate techniques, some other stages map to just one. That's not an error. That's the honest, uneven shape of how a real breach actually unfolds. Now it's your turn. You don't have to use Target. In fact, you probably shouldn't, if the goal is a portfolio piece that's genuinely yours. A few strong alternatives: Equifax in 2017, a textbook unpatched software failure. Colonial Pipeline in 2021, brought down by a single leaked password with no multi-factor authentication. SolarWinds in 2020, a nation-state attack hidden inside a routine software update. Capital One in 2019, a cloud misconfiguration. MGM Resorts in 2023, brought down by a 10-minute phone call to a help desk. And Change Healthcare in 2024, one of the largest healthcare breaches on record. Pick whichever one actually interests you. That matters more than you'd think. You'll write a better analysis about a breach you're genuinely curious about. Good analysis stands on good sources, never just one blog post, and never guesswork dressed up as fact. Start with the organization's own disclosure, and for public companies, their official filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission. Then government reports, congressional hearings, GAO reports, state investigations. Then incident response firms like Mandiant, CrowdStrike, or SecureWorks, who often publish detailed technical write-ups. Then established security journalism, Krebs on security, the record, bleeping computer. And finally, check MITRE's own website. If a named hacking group is involved, MITRE has often already mapped some of their known techniques for you. Read each source, then write what you learned in your own words, with an attribution. Never copy and paste. Before you publish anything, run through this checklist. Do you have at least 2 or 3 credible sources? Have you addressed every stage of the kill chain, including writing, quote, not publicly documented, when a source genuinely doesn't say? Does every ATT&CK technique include both its name and its ID code? Are dates included wherever they are known? Is it written entirely in your own words? Have you added 1 or 2 sentences on what single control, a patch, multi-factor authentication, a vendor policy, would have broken the chain? And have you proofread it, ideally out loud? If you can check every box, you're ready to publish. This next part is the one most students skip, and it's the one that matters most for actually getting hired. A portfolio with 1 dated entry, started in week 1, is worth more to a hiring manager than a perfect one built the week before you apply. Consistency is the signal. So we're not going to wait. We're publishing this today, using a free GitHub repository, 5 minutes, start to finish. Sign into GitHub, and click the plus icon in the top right corner of any page, then New Repository. Give it a name you'll reuse for future write-ups too, something like Breach Analysis Portfolio works well. Make sure public is selected, not private, that's the entire point of a portfolio. And check the box to add a README file. Click Create Repository, and GitHub takes you straight to your new repo's homepage, already live, already containing a starter file called readme.md. That file is where your write-up is going to live. Click on that README file, then click the pencil icon in the top right corner to edit it. This opens GitHub's built-in editor. Nothing to install, nothing to configure. Just a text box. You'll write using Markdown, a simple formatting language that needs only a handful of symbols. A single pound sign makes a big heading. 2 pound signs make a smaller one. 2 asterisks around a word makes it bold. A dash makes a bullet point. And a line of vertical bars makes a table column. Replace the placeholder text with your real write-up, a title, a short summary, your kill chain table, and your list of ATT&CK techniques. Scroll to the bottom of the editor and click Commit Changes. In Git, a commit is just a saved snapshot with a short message describing what changed. Write something specific, like, quote, add target kill chain and ATT&CK mapping, rather than accepting the generic default. Leave commit directly to the main branch selected, and click the green Commit Changes button. And that's it. The moment you commit, your plain text becomes a clean, formatted page, headings, tables, and all, at a real, public web address anyone can open. Copy that link right now, while you're already here, and add it to your resume and your LinkedIn profile. Don't wait. An empty line that says, Portfolio, link coming soon, is exactly the kind of thing that never actually gets finished. Let's recap what just happened. You learned the cyber kill chain's 7 stages. You learned how MITRE ATT&CK organizes attacker behavior into tactics and techniques. You watched a full, sourced breakdown of a real breach. You built your own. And you published it, live, to a public web address. That repository is going to grow, a new entry every few weeks, for the rest of this course. But the hardest part, the part everyone else keeps putting off, is already done. It's live. It's public. And it's got your name on it.